Hi, I am Madison McNall. I graduated in 2020. And the reason that LPO is super impactful for me is academically, I've never really had issues. I have always enjoyed school to a degree, but I lost my mom at the age of 11, and with that came, some behavioral challenges, I would say. I started to misbehave, I started to skip school. It kind of became habitual for a long time, especially when I was in high school, just acting out in different ways, but that was definitely a huge one. I had a few hundred hours of detention time at Sandpoint High School because it wasn't a right fit for me. I didn't feel supported at that school because if I didn't do all my homework, I was going to fail. And that happened. I failed a few classes, had F's and D's my entire freshman year, except for a few small straggling A's in some of my extracurriculars, such as art. It's always been one of my favorites. But the biggest change for me was in sophomore year. I had failed my entire freshman year of English and math, and then same thing with my sophomore year, the start of my sophomore year. And then the start of my sophomore year, from the first quarter alone, I had about 300 hours of detention that I had to serve, and I was still skipping school. I really had stopped caring about school entirely, even with my dad's pleas for me to continue to go to school. I begged for him to make the switch to LPO, which was probably one of the best changes for my academic growth. I did switch over to LPO my sophomore year, and then my entire sophomore year, an immediate change happened. I had support from teachers. I wasn't skipping school anymore. I had straight A's and B's. I even graduated with straight A's and B's. I do have so much love and appreciation for LPO for the factor of not only the support from the teachers or the other students, but just the entirety of what LPO stands for. It is support for our small community, for the troubled kids, so to speak, but it is something that speaks a bit louder than that. Without LPO, I wouldn't have graduated, and I know that, and it's not for, lack of intelligence. It's not for a lack of trying, so to speak. It was more so just because I didn't have anyone who was helping me accomplish that goal or who really seemed to care. I think the biggest thing for me is having that switch around where I'm having those straight A's and B's. I was able to actually start college in my senior year of high school, which is a huge opportunity. I'm very grateful for everything that I've had with LPO, and I'd like for that to be the same option for other students who maybe are academically amazing, but without the right support, they're not going to be able to succeed, because I think that happens a bit too often. Beyond just that with LPO, I do think the programs or the teachers that do work there all play a part into making sure each student is feeling cared for, which is the largest reason why I really didn't skip school again. I didn't have an interest to. I enjoyed going to school. Even on those days where we're having testing and, doing a bit more of the difficult things, there's always a support system that you need, and they're a bit more involved in your life, making sure, hey, we notice something's going on, and that's huge. It's not something a lot of teachers, would do at any other school, for example. So it is something that I value still to this day, and I appreciate and know that I'd like that same opportunity for, other children, not even my own per se, but every other person's, because it's huge to have support and care like that in our community. As far as moving the school into portables within the same campus area, I know personally I would have likely continued to skip school. It wouldn't have made a positive impact. I think the biggest thing with the separate campus, it does help some of those students that are, skipping school or whatever the case is. It's giving them a separate area that is much safer, and honestly, it helps me feel better being away from a place that I didn't want to be at most of the time anyway. So that's something that's huge for me too, is it seems like realistically it is not in the interest of the students or the faculty. It's in the interest of financial aspects of things, unfortunately, which is hard because I do think, again, that students deserve to have an opportunity to go to school at LPO where it currently is located. It's a great thing to be able to have that separate campus. And I think beyond that too, it could create, difficulty for just social aspects for students going to that same school. If they're going to, LPO and portables within the same facility as Sandpoint High School, it's going to be seen as, oh, they're the different kids, or they're the weird kids because they're going to this separate section at the same high school. So I think it does just create a lot of issues with